afternoon. Adrianne and I are here today to tell you a little bit about a program for lending technology that will be going on through the library this fall. And specifically, we're going to be offering 6 iPads for use by the Huron community. We're going to be telling you a little bit about why we've decided to bring iPads and start with iPads as technology lending at the library, tell you how you can get your hands on one, and just give you some examples of the kinds of activities that we think we'll be able to realize for our students using this particular technology. So why iPads? Well, over the last year in the library, we've been looking at our local learning environment and gathering research about learning generally. And we've recognized, not just in libraries, but in classrooms, in education generally, information technology has played a role in assisting and evolving how students learn. And over the last 5 to 10 years, the hardware and software possibilities have literally, it feels like, exploded. Recent literature indicates that technology is one element of student success that is important to pay attention to. It's a factor in recruitment and retention, 2 words that all of us have heard a lot over the last few months. So in March, the Academic Technology Advisory Committee, or ATTAC as we call ourselves, really aggressive, ran a technology survey. And one of the things that we learned about our students was that they feel our technology is outdated, which again, wasn't necessarily a surprise to us. But they had a lot of really good suggestions of things that we could do to improve our technology landscape. And some of those things we can achieve short term, and some things will be a bit longer term in our thinking. So there is going to be more about the technology survey a little bit later today. But one sort of low-hanging fruit element that kept coming up in the student results was this idea of a more flexible kind of environment, a more flexible kind of learning environment, both inside and outside the classroom. And that's something, again, the library's been exploring over the last few months, is how we can make our environment more flexible. We're doing a number of different things to address that. So we are changing some of our furniture and layout in the information commons this summer. And we also wanted to think about how we could use technology to make our space more flexible. And that's when the idea of iPad lending came about. So we know that iPads have potential for enhancing how students interact with library collections. So from a library perspective, we have an interest in trying this out. But we also recognize there's ways that you yourselves as faculty, as both researchers, as learners, as teachers, could be making use of these devices and integrating these into your student experiences. So before we show some examples of how iPads can be used, Adrianne's going to talk a little bit about the practical details involved in setting up our iPad lending program.
So I'm going to go over the lending policy as we've envisioned it so far, based on some of the best practices we've discovered at other places that have already implemented iPad lending. And the development of these policies will be an iterative process, so as we see how things go and as we get feedback from borrowers, things will change up a bit. So all of the iPads, all 6 of them, will have the same setup, so they'll look something like this when you open up the screen on there. And when you borrow one, you'll be able to load your own content onto them, and then once you return the iPad back to us, library staff will clear out all of the data and settings that you've loaded onto them, and they'll be restored back to the library settings, which will look something like this. The iPads may only be borrowed by currently registered Huron faculty, students, and staff. And the library is going to be able to monitor that when we scan your card in the circulation system that we use, as that distinguishes Huron borrowers. So, and this is something we also currently do when we sign out study rooms to students, as those are also only bookable by Huron community members. So you're probably wondering how you can actually borrow one of these. And something that I'm really happy about is we're able to use the current systems that we have to be able to lend them out. So I think that's going to offer a more seamless service to people that wish to borrow them. So one of the systems that we already are using is the Super SAS system, and that's how people can book study rooms in advance and also writing center appointments. So you're going to be able to book an iPad in advance through that. And then if you have one booked, you'll be able to just come up to the library circulation desk, and we just need to scan your ID card, and that's going to bring up your record. And it'll work pretty much the same as signing out a book, so fairly simple. And we've been talking about what the loan periods will look like for iPads. So what we've decided is the loan period is going to be from the time of checkout to 30 minutes before the library closes that evening. However, we understand that people may like a bit more flexibility. So if you'd like to borrow it overnight or even take it on a conference, you can make alternate arrangements with us just by emailing HEC Library. So one other piece to this is we will be asking the borrowers to sign a liability agreement when you sign one out. And so that you don't have to do that every time you want to sign one out, we're going to keep that on file, and we can add a note to your library account saying that you've already done that. So that'll help. Basically, that form's just going to say that you're responsible if the iPad gets damaged, lost, or stolen. But if you're clumsy like I am, you'll be happy to know that we're keeping them in an OtterBox case. So
I was going to drop it on the floor. Should I drop it and see what happens? No. Sorry. It's already paid for, so no. I won't.
So a couple other things to keep in mind. iPads will fall under the Code of Behavior for use of computing resources in corporate data. If you're not familiar with that, I do have a link to it in the notes that I'll be sharing. And another thing is, even though we're going to be clearing all of your settings and content that you're going to have on the iPad, it's a good idea to remember to log out of everything before you return it. And if you'd like any more details on information security, there is a good website at security.uwo.ca. And to talk a bit more about some of these things that you're seeing on here, some things that we've already started to install. We're in an experimenting phase right now. It's still fairly new to us. Well, new to us in the library. And one of the tools that I started using when I was looking for apps to install is it's called the pedagogy wheel. So it's a bit of a funny name, but it goes really well with the theme of teaching and learning today. And so there's a lot going on there. But you can see it's divided into 5 parts. And it's a bit blurry, but it's the parts are understanding, remembering, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. And on this outer ring is where they have all of the apps that fit into those parts. This PDF is pretty neat. If you click on one of the apps, it'll take you to a site that explains the app a bit more, tells you if it's free or not, and also a link to be able to download it. So far, we've only downloaded free apps, but we're definitely going to be looking into some that do have a fee. And so because of that, we are also going to be creating a collection development policy for apps. And that's going to be suited to the needs of Huron, and we'll also be looking for some recommendations from you. So I think that's about all I have for today, so I'll pass it back to Jennifer for more discussion on the possible use of the iPads.
These days is students going on to WebCT OWL. Okay, so that's what they do when they come in to the library. And on reflection, it's not that surprising, because in the past, they may come in to prepare for class, and they go to the reserve desk, they go grab a book off the shelf, because that's where their readings are, that's where the material they need is kept. But now, because we've accumulated it all in this digital space, they're going to different places in order to use this content. So we've got WebCTL loaded right onto the desktop, and students will be able to go in and come into the library, sign out an iPad, and instead of sitting in one of our computer desks with a clunky desktop, go curl up in a nice chair, sit where they like, go down to the SAC if they take it out of the library, and prepare themselves for class. So I'm just going to show you what this looks like when I log in. And one really awful feature of this particular login screen is it's going to show you my password. So everybody has to close their eyes while I put my password in. I'm serious, okay? Don't remember my password. I'm going to go change it right after this. Okay. All right, so I'm going to use, actually, I am part of Teresa Hubble's English 2363 class because you gave me permission to be on here, so I'm using it as an example. So say I'm in Teresa's class and I want to prepare my weekly readings. So I come in and I'm able to open up my reading. Okay. All right, and again, how I read this, we're showing it landscape for you on here, but obviously I'm able to adjust it to however I like. All right, can you read that at the back, Mark? No? Now you can see it. Okay, so we've got the right font size there. Now, in addition to this, and why I sort of wanted to go after our colleagues who just talked about annotation, is that you'll see that there are different ways that people will be able to use these documents. So I'm able to interact with other apps from the reading screen and say, okay, you know what? I want to open this in Adobe because I may want to make some notes on this. Okay, so again, I'm able to go in and muck around here. There's pieces along the bottom where I'm able to insert notes and such, or I'm able to highlight, tap where I want to add a note. It remembers I'm Jennifer. This is my note. I'm sure your students will have much more reflective comments than that. All right, and you're able to save. You're able to highlight. Okay, so you're able to do a number of different things. And again, this is with a free app. There's an app called iAnnotate that I have on my personal iPad that I use more often that also allows me to export my annotation. So once I've marked up a document, I email it to myself in a number of different fashions. I can email it with just a highlighting in place. I can email it and ask it to put on my notes separately. So again, it's just a little bit more robust. But that's the type of thing that students will be able to do from the iPad. Just an example. So again, having a direct gateway to OWL will definitely be something that we will pursue. And in the literature, the library literature in particular, organizations that have worked with iPads have found that in addition to it becoming, a way that students can get access to content, they've started to design these as learning portals, so they've gotten much more deliberate about how this setup works, and that's again what we're looking to learn over time. One of the other things we've bookmarked on here is some information about ebook platforms at the library. And again, this is something we've gotten a lot of questions about over the last few months from faculty because more and more e-content is becoming available. And honestly, ebooks are complicated in academic libraries, and you can blame the publishers for that, not your helpful library staff. Because we really shouldn't need a chart. You don't need a chart to read a book, right? You come into the library, you pull it off the shelf, and you read it. It's a very nice format. Ebooks are not quite as simple because of digital rights management, because of different download restrictions, because of all these different agreements. However, students will be able to get access to ebook content through the iPad by going in and selecting things from our collection. And it seems like on your evaluations, if people are interested in a longer session on ebooks, that's something the library would be happy to deliver, and we think that might be a really good value. One of the other things I wanted to show you under Read, and this is again to give you a sense of, okay, so we've got a public iPad, but I have a personal iPad that I do a lot of stuff on. Maybe I forget my iPad one day, maybe as a student I don't want to bring it to campus, but how are the two going to interact? How are they going to play with each other? And to show you how that's possible, I'm going to show you this product called Browsine. So again, we talked about ebooks, and now I'm going to talk about e-journals. So this is a way for students to get access to our content. Of course, it's available. I identify myself as being from Western. I completely abandoned security protocol and show you my password again. Close your eyes, nobody's looking. Okay, now I have a browsing bookshelf on my own iPad at home. So the first time I logged into this system, it recognized that and said, you have another shelf somewhere. Do you want to sync these so that when you make changes on one, it reflects on the other? And I said, yes, I do. Okay, so the bookshelf that I see here, which, yeah, I know, it's a real shelf. You can pick a wood shelf, you can have a metal shelf, so you can decorate however you prefer. And you create these categories. So I've just been playing around and looking at these different categories. You can see that I've saved articles over time. Okay, this is a book review. Similar to what I did previously, I can open this article in different apps that allow me to annotate it or do other things with it. So again, it's a similarly robust type of platform that gets students into the different content that we have available. And again, all of it is through my institution info, which in this case takes me to Western Libraries. But yeah, basically, you're able to go in. This is the most current issue of the Journal of Political Science Education. I can see all of the available issues. Okay, so this is on this platform back to 2012. You can open things up, save articles, do whatever you need to do in order to read them, mark them up, etc. And this will take a moment to open it up. Any questions about those two specific platforms or generally? Yeah.
So you have iPads. What about students who have other kinds of tablets? Like for instance, if they have a tablet at home, do they interact easily? I don't know, because I just got my first tablet.
What type of tablet do you have?
It's a Microsoft Pro Surface 3.
Right.
Computer.
I'm getting one of those too. Do you like it? Okay, I've heard they're nice. And the reason I'm getting one is for this exact reason. So this is an iOS environment, which uses very specific apps, et cetera. And what you're talking about with Microsoft is more Android and other types of environments. So I'm going to be getting one of those this summer to experiment with this exact thing. How seamless are these? Apple's really cornered the market on apps, but Android's quickly catching up. So for example, Browsine, I believe, either does have the app or it's in development. The argument with the tablet, such as what you're using, is that it's such a great Windows environment that they don't need apps and you can run everything within browsers. But I think they're finding that because the apps have more value-added features in terms of the annotation and saving, there is a reason or a purpose to going that direction. So, to sum up, we don't have right now the other types of tablets to lend, but we're absolutely willing to help out if you bring that in and want to do something. Take a look at it, see how it functions. And again, it's really about what do you want to do. And what students are really great at is breaking systems that we set up, right? And I love them for it, because it's like we set something up and then they use it in a completely different way that we did not anticipate. And as frustrating as that can be, there's a lot of learning there. So that's partly why I want to bring these in. I think this is how a student should use this iPad, but they're going to pick it up and go, oh, well, I'm going to do this. And so that's going to help us figure out whether we're hitting the mark in terms of what they want to do with these, how we need to evolve, and how we will evolve these so that they will suit, again, what the students want to do.
They're going to go right to socialize.
Yeah. Really spend a few hours on Pinterest. That seems like a good use of time. Netflix. Yeah, we've got a whole area here. So those are really, again, just a couple of examples of ways in which the library thinks that students could use these to get at content, to use it. But we know that there are ways that you will use it as well in your classes. And we've already seen, over the last year in particular, a real resurgence in faculty who say, I want my students to come into the library and I want them to do stuff. But we're really limited in the library. We don't have a computer classroom yet. We don't have some of the spaces that we'd like to be able to do big group work. The iPad sort of opens up a world of possibilities for getting the students into the library, having them do library type activities without us needing to expand our square footage yet, because I don't want you to think that these replace an extension, Neil. We still need more space. So as good as these are, students will be able to come in, and Dawn has had a lot of classes do this year, where faculty have said, I want students to do X. And so they were doing it with smartphones in some cases, but imagine getting your class together, taking out the 6 iPads, handing them out to the groups and saying, now, I want you to go do these 5 things, and as you're doing them, I want you to document your learning journey. I want you to take pictures of things. I want you to record your impression of something. I want you to find something using the iPad, take a screenshot of it. There's any number of ways that you can sort of use this within your repertoire to say, okay, figure out how you want the learning journey to go for the students. So they'll be able to come in and not just interact with the library digitally, but you can send them downstairs into the physical collection, and they can do things with this to, again, sort of record their experience and their interaction with other aspects of the library building, the library staff, all of that type of thing. So that's another way that we see these being used, because obviously we all know iPads have great capabilities in terms of content dissemination, like the reading, etc., but also content creation. So there are apps on here and things for creating video, for taking pictures, for recording audio, a lot of different opportunities there.